Good afternoon, everyone. We're going to attempt to show you how I do the decoupage. First off, I like to do is I have my pre-painted stone here. The napkin comes in a 3-ply. So what I do is I use painter's tape, and I like to remove one of the plies, leaving the original napkin and one ply attached. My next step is I take my stone and I place my napkin over the stone and center it and adjust it as how I want to see it placed on the stone. So I've got it centered. Then what I use is I have a small bottle of water, and I have a very fine paintbrush. So I dip my brush into my water, get it wet for the brush. I want to make sure I have my napkin centered properly. And then along the edge here, it's called decoing, or feathering the edge to the side of the stone. So I wet the napkin, and I try to wet it along the bottom edge of where the napkin reaches either the midway point or the bottom of the stone. And then I will take it and I will gently, using my forefinger, so I don't want it to rip up higher, to hold it down and pull apart the napkin. And then you see it's kind of decoed or ripped. And I will work my way around the edges. On this particular napkin, I would going to try to not rip the area of the star. So I will do my best to just eliminate just a ever so small area. So I might lift it up, hold it with my palm of my hand, holding the napkin in place, and just kind of like rip just a tiny little area. Get a little water on there. You don't want too much water because it'll penetrate further into the napkin, so you don't want to lose too much of that. So I want to go on the other side of the center of the star and just get a little bit out. So I got a little bit of a rip there. Then I'm going to continue and I move my stone around, holding it in place as I move. And I'm going to go along this edge. So I will continue wetting the napkin here, because the stone angles. So I'm ripping it, holding it my forefinger or my left hand on the top, because I don't want it to rip too high. I want it to stay, to goes over the edge if possible. The stone is painted with a similar color, so it would blend in. And this particular stone I have, it indents quite a bit, so I have to be maybe more aggressive on how much I take off as I continue along the edge. Now, since the napkin is at the edge of the stone or thereabouts, what I'd like to do is I'll wet it and I'll just rip or deco just a smidge along the line. I don't want to take too much of the picture away. So I use the end of my nail on my thumb, and I am just tearing apart just an ever so slight area, if at all possible. I don't want to put too much water. I continue getting it wet and do a little area at a time. I feel as though this particular napkin, the more of the photo that we see, the better. But I also don't want to see straight lines. I like to try to get rid of the straight lines and see a feathered or decoed edge that goes into the paint. So I'm going to continue this as I slowly work my way around. Now, unfortunately, I can ask, or you can ask questions. We'll put them in the comments. I might have to answer them later instead of immediately because need to pay attention to what I am doing. This is pretty important. I can always answer a question or a comment later when I check the video or at the end of the session. I will do my best maybe to look up every once in a while at an appropriate time to see if there are any comments or questions that I need to answer at the time. So I'm going to continue down, decoing this edge, ripping the edge a little bit. And I'm getting to the bottom of the stone here now. I've got this one side here all complete with taking off a little as possible. Now I'm going to turn my stone around so I can work on it easier. And I'm at the corner, so I will add some more water to my brush and go around the bottom and pull apart some napkin again. And as I continue, since the bottom of the napkin is close, just over the edge of the stone, I just want to take off a little bit of the napkin. I don't want to take off a lot. I'd prefer the napkin to hang over the edge if possible. So I am going to continue on. This particular stone that I'm working on now is for a customer that was requested. A lady asked me if I would make her the nativity scene stone. So I am doing that for her. I believe she is a friend possibly of Yvonne's. I'm not 100% sure. I just put I asked a polling question on the couple of different Facebook pages if anybody was interested. I know it's not the season of Christmas, but the nativity set, it's not just the season, it's the reason for the season. And then the nativity just happens to be the reason for the season. And this represents what the season is all about in our celebration of the birth of our Jesus Christ. So then there's some writing that's on the napkin. I don't particularly like to see that. So what I will do is I try to take off as little but as much as I can so the writing doesn't get displayed on the stone. So I will pick apart or just little piecemeal so the writing gets taken off if I can. That's why it's good to have the stone colored a little bit so it's similar. There we go. See, I got that done. So now I'm going to turn my stone around and I will work up this edge. And you see that on this particular stone, the edge of the napkin is right at the edge of the stone where it starts to bend over or round out the edges. So on the robe of one of the wise men here, I will there again try to take off as little as possible. Just ever so slight with my nail of my thumb. I pull it apart. I need to add a little more water, but I don't put my brush all the way in the water, like just the tip, just to get it ever so slight. And then sometimes if you take it and you want to rip it a little bit, maybe rip one little section, move up a little further than what you would normally do, and do a section above it, like you would skip a little area. So that way you're not going to have too much being taken off, or one piece might go into another and you rip it. So as move along, I am past the robe of the wise men. So now I just take a little more, keep working my way up. There we are. I have reached all the way around to the stone. I'd like to go back to the top here. There's one little area up here by the star I would like to deco just a little bit more without touching the star if possible. Sometimes there's a fold on the napkin that I need to try to get that fold out of there, because that's at the star just happens to be at the edge of the napkin where it meets all the other profiles for the main napkin. So now that I have this stone and the napkin more or less mated, I am going to now just set the stone aside for just a second. I'm going to turn over my napkin, and I'll use my 2 pieces of painter's tape to separate the napkin so I can peel it apart. You will note, I'm not sure if you can see it on the video, there's like an embossed section where the napkins gets pressed together, and it's an embossed design. So if possible, stay away from that to try to separate the napkin, because that's almost impossible. So get to this section of the napkin that there's no embossed, and then use the painter's tape, and I have it started here. I will take off this tape, and then now I will gently, using my finger, to pull the last layer of the napkin apart, and I set that off to the side. Then I bring over my stone again, bring back my stone. I want to get my water out of the way. I don't want any accidents to happen with water. I will place my napkin on my stone just to fit it. I'm trying to see, how does it fit? How does it look? Look at it all over the area. Is it fitting properly the way we want it to fit? That way, and I get it in your head, okay, this is what it needs to look like when I get ready to put it down. So then, in preparation of the Mod Podge, I'll take a piece of Saran Wrap, and I'm going to have that setting here on the side. And I will make sure that before I start my video for the live video, I will have that piece of Saran Wrap off to the side, and all I have to do is lift for it. So I'm going to take my Mod Podge. I use a specialty Mod Podge that's made for napkins, and this is what it looks like. Turn my napkin, move it over. I will take my brush, and now I will cover my stone with the Mod Podge. You will note that I do not put this on heavy. It does not require a heavy coat. Lighter the better. Just get it covered, make sure you got it all covered. I do the edges, so where the section of the napkins do hang over, that the Mod Podge is there to glue the napkin to the stone. Now in this particular case, I have enough Mod Podge on the rock. I'm just going to smooth it out, just to make sure I have it all around those edges and in the crevices. There we are. Now when I take my napkin, I'll try to make it concave, because I don't want the outside edges to touch the stone before I put my napkin down. I want the center of the napkin to be hitting and contacting the stone first, if at all possible. So I will center my napkin here, and then gently lie it down. I will take my Saran Wrap, place it on top, stretch it a little bit, and try to work from the center out, smoothing it out. Now I am using very light pressure on my fingers to get this to smooth out. Once I get it attached with a very light touch, I'm going to take the saran wrap off, and then I will press down and adhere it, and then work my way around the napkin to remove the wrinkles. Now I have a light. I want to make sure that I have plenty of light that I can see these wrinkles. So for the purpose of this video, see, there are a lot of wrinkles here. So I don't want to just smooth out with my finger. I want to smooth it down with the saran wrap, smoothing it out, different directions, patting it down, smoothing it out. If you're gentle, if you're not real forceful with the pressure, you can see that the wrinkles will eliminate. Pat them down and try to smooth them out to the edges as necessary. I have had in the past where I've had to start all over, so I will have to take a piece of sandpaper and a sander and sand everything off, and I would have to start all over. So it's never perfect on the first time. All the time, I have had to work on a stone on a couple of times where I have to redo it. See, as I look at it, I see some of the wrinkles that were there are now disappearing. Now I'm using a little bit more force and trying to get those wrinkles out now. That's why I make sure that I have enough light, a bright light, to look at it. Sometimes I even have to, if there's sunshine, I go to the window and hold it in my hand and try to forcefully get these wrinkles out. Now I'm applying a lot more pressure, pushing down and going in different directions, trying to smooth everything out. Then just a hint, once I get this smoothed out to my liking, then I will let this dry for a little bit. And then if I take my hand across the face of the stone and I feel like there may be some ridges, it's from the napkin or whatever, what I will do is take a piece of parchment paper. I will cover the stone, and then I will take I have an old iron from probably the 60s or 70s, avocado green. I put it on a permapress on the iron, and then I will let it heat up, and then I will put that on top of the stone and work my iron around to make it flat, make it smooth. That just helps out making it a little more smoother. Even though these Santorinis, they look flat, they seem to be all flat, they're really not perfectly flat. There's just no way that they're perfectly flat. And you'll find that out. I'm sure most of you know that if you do any resin. Sometimes it'll pool just a little bit area here or there. So it's never flat, never perfect. As I work around now, I see the majority of these wrinkles now are all finished. And then the area where it was embossed, that area now, you lose the embossment once you work on and press out the area of the wrinkles. So this is coming out pretty nice. I'm satisfied with that. That's not bad. See, I have the star on this particular stone at the top where it butts out over here. I wanted the star to be in that area. So there is the napkin now with the wrinkles all pressed down and pressed out and pushed away. if you ever put the napkin down using this particular glue, you can lift it up gently and then try to relay it. It's not advisable. I would say once you have your napkin down and on the stone, I would leave it unless you just absolutely have to move it. That's why you want to try to get an idea of how it's supposed to look before you glue it, lay it on the stone, measure it out, just kind of get your eyeball, get it looking really good. So that takes care of that. And then keep in mind, if you put your hand across there, you feel little ridges or something like that, let it dry a little bit. Then you can take that parchment paper and then iron and take care of that. And that'll take care of it for today.